The passenger ship, the General Slocum, was built in Brooklyn, New York in 1891. 13 years later, in 1904, tragedy struck when the General Slocum caught on fire and over 1,000 people lost their lives. This story is a part of New York City history, and it is a very sad story. If that might be upsetting to you, then you might want to choose to not watch this video. There are some graphic images from the disaster on the internet, but I will not be posting those images within this video. However, there will be some images of the disaster that I will share with you. On Wednesday, June the 15th, 1904, the ship had been chartered for $350 by St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church in the Little Germany district of Manhattan. The trip was an annual event for the community, having done the same event 17 times previously. Over 1,300 people boarded the ship to set sail to Eaton's Neck in Long Island for the annual picnic. Almost all of the people on board were women and children. In the 13-year history of the ship, the owners made no attempt to maintain or replace the ship's safety equipment. Indeed, in some situations, they cut corners to save money. Many of the deaths on that day can be attributed to the neglect of the safety equipment. The fire hoses had been left to rot, the lifeboats were tied up and inaccessible, no fire drills had ever been conducted, and the life jackets had been tampered with. In order to meet the minimum weight requirements for the life jackets, which had been made with cheap cork, the manufacturer placed iron bars inside of the vests to meet the weight requirement. The life jackets had hung above the deck for 13 years, all unprotected from the harsh New York elements. 30 minutes into the journey, when the ship had reached 97th Street in Manhattan, the fire was first discovered. Crew hands ran to the lower deck to turn the fire hoses onto the fire, but when they did so, the rotted hoses burst. They ran back upstairs to inform Captain William von Shake that the fire was out of control and that it was like trying to put out hell itself. Onlookers in Manhattan screamed for Captain von Shake to dock, but fearing that he would leave the ship stranded in the strong current, he continued full steam ahead towards the pier at 134th Street. Once there, a tugboat captain warned him off, afraid that the lumber stored at the pier would catch on fire. In a final desperate attempt, Captain von Shake made way for North Brother Island, a mile away, in the hopes of beaching the ship sideways so that the passengers had a chance to escape. The speed of the ship, combined with the fresh north winds, only served to fan the flames that had already engulfed the ship. Panic had ensued as distressed women searched for their children. Those who did find them could only watch in abject horror, for after putting a life jacket on their child and tossing them into the water, the life jackets would disintegrate upon contact. Most people of the time could not swim, and even those who could would soon find that the heavy woolen clothing of the time would make swimming nearly impossible. For a great many of the passengers, they had a decision to make: either stay on the burning ship or jump into the water that they could not swim in. Either option was a death sentence. One man leapt over the port side, only to be swallowed up by the giant paddle wheel, and others blindly followed him to the same fate. As I'm sure you can imagine, the horror stories are endless as to what people had to endure on that day, some so graphic that I wouldn't dare to repeat them. So there is no need to belabor the point of the human tragedy. All in all, An estimated 1,021 people died on that day, which was the worst disaster in New York City history until the attacks of September the 11th, 2001. There were 321 survivors. There were many tales of heroism on June the 15th, 1904. Tugboats and paddle boats chased the General Slocum in a desperate attempt to rescue survivors, with many people on those trailing boats diving into the water themselves to save people by the dozen. Without the tugboats and the quick-thinking captains, the death toll would have been much higher. The nearby Riverside Hospital had witnessed the burning ship approaching, and everyone prepared to help, with even some patients forming a human chain to pull bodies ashore. Some nurses even dove into the water and swam to rescue people. Captain Von Schaick was believed to be the last person off the ship. His legs were almost crippled from the burns that he had suffered, and he had lost the sight of one eye in the fire. 8 people were indicted by a federal grand jury after the disaster, and only Captain Von Schaick was found guilty of criminal negligence for not maintaining proper safety equipment. He was sentenced to 10 years hard labor at New York's Sing Sing prison. 3.5 years later, he was pardoned by President William Taft. The neighborhood of Little Germany in Manhattan soon disappeared, with the remaining residents either moving uptown or the recently widowed men returning to Germany to start a new life. This memorial that we are viewing today was erected as a memorial for the remains of the 61 unidentified victims from the General Slocum disaster. The memorial was unveiled by Adela Liebenau in 1905, when she was 18 months old. Adela was the youngest survivor of the tragedy, having been 6 months old at the time that the fire claimed the lives of 5 of her relatives, including her 2 sisters. Adela Liebenau Wotherspoon died in 2004, the last remaining survivor from the General Slocum disaster. From 1905 until her death, Adela returned to the cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, annually to take part in the memorial service held each year.